Hi there. Thanks a lot for joining in to the Hacktoberfest by Quickwork. I'm Krish Advani, and I'm really here to talk about open source and APIs as a holistic view. And we are really going to dig deep down into how to build your own journeys for connecting multiple open source applications. So let me begin with the overall presentation. My role really honestly here is to sort of keep the presentations to the minimal and focus more on real world case scenarios where I can actually show you how valuable open source projects really are and how APIs are really built and what is the purpose that they serve. So let me jump to the first slide, which basically dictates the agenda of this call. We are briefly going to talk about the importance of open source. We're going to see a bunch of open source projects which you can run on premise. In fact, you can even build your business on top of it. More to come on that. Then there's a thought leadership exercise where we're going to talk more about how APIs is pretty much becoming like the new operating system. APIs has become like perhaps the thing which we believe is the way to the future, even though they have been around for several years now. Then we're going to do a little bit of workshop, and we're going to be focusing on how to build automated workflows by sort of connecting open source applications and some non-open source application, which will include WhatsApp, MySQL, Elasticsearch, Google Places, Yours URL, and many other search platforms, which will enable you to sort of connect these things and build something important and nice. At the same time, we have a Q&A session from 1 to 1:30, where we will accept your questions over chat, and the moderator will dictate which questions we should take forward. So let's begin. Before we sort of proceed, I would like to give a brief introduction about Quickwork. Now, Quickwork is a startup. We are pretty much based out of Mumbai, but we operate with customers all across the globe. And we are pretty much in the space of connecting things together. We connect any API-oriented application to any other API-oriented application with thousands of pre-built integrations and automations readily available on our platform. Our core focus and area, which you will see in the future in the demonstration that I'm going to show you, is that how we do integrations, how we build APIs, and how we manage conversations in one single place. And a little bit about me, I am Krish Advani. I am the co-founder and VP engineering at Quickwork. And I am a really, passionate guy about developing things since I was a little kid. And the first project that I can remember was also an API oriented and an open source project, which was on WordPress, building a plugin, which enabled things to be served via an API. And my passion has been around APIs since then. And my role in Quickwork is really to democratize automation. My job here is to make automations accessible to everyone and anyone all across the globe. So that is me, and you can also see me on the display. So let's get started with the real agenda of the call, right? So what really is open source, and why do I believe this is an undervalued topic all across the globe? This call that we are doing right now, and you and me speaking to each other and you being able to hear me at this moment is happening because of open source. And I would like to define what open source is. It is pretty much a bunch of people all across the globe coming together to build a software so that you can have that software free of cost. They pretty much collaborate, they write code, they communicate, they file issues and bugs, manage projects all together by not knowing each other, probably not even by speaking their native language. And they build these open source softwares for you to take free of cost. Now, that's what I have mentioned over here, but there are certain criteria, and there are more than these already present. And you can visit the open source website to understand what are the criteria which makes an open source project. But basically, it means that it should be free for distribution. There should be the source code available. There should be no discrimination against the person who is building it, and the license must be technology neutral. But rather than showing you this presentation, I would like to really show you an open source project, right? Now, I am sure that most of you who have joined this call are familiar with enterprise messaging channels like Slack, Microsoft Teams and Google Hangout, perhaps, right? Those are all team communication channels. But somebody out there, and not just somebody, a collaboration of 681 people together have built something called as RocketChat. Now, RocketChat is a phenomenally pretty and beautiful messaging platform, which is available free of cost. And if you go to their GitHub page, which I'm on right now, they provide this software for you completely free of cost. You can literally run this, as I mentioned on the lower section over here. If I scroll down on a $35, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, $35 Raspberry Pi computer, and that's it. You buy it and you forget about it. And this project is what I am running over here. I, in fact, went across and ran this application for you so that you can visualize it. And all I did to get this application running on my computer was to focus on just running the 4 commands that they mentioned right over here. If I scroll down a little bit, git clone. Yeah, there you go. These 4 commands literally made me unable to have a Slack alternative free of cost running on my system right over here. And as you can see, it has an interface just like Slack. You have groups and teams. You can invite your own members. You can chat here. You have all kinds of features which you would want to have in a team messaging channel. In fact, if you scroll down to or scroll up rather, to the feature set that they offer multi-rooms, APIs, file uploading capability, emojis and avatars, inviting group and team members, everything that you might want from a very scalable and a beautiful platform for you to communicate with your team. If you just go and drill down into the administration settings, you'll understand the capability of this platform, which somebody is offering you at no conditions. But what is the best part of open source applications just like this one, which you see over here, is that you can redistribute it. So for example, if you are a developer and you wish to sort of take this chat platform and build something on top of it, you can do that. You can take this code, build something nice and pretty, push it as a product, and you can even sell it if you want to. So I would like to bring your attention to some other open source projects which people tend to use. Now, VS Code, believe it or not, is an open source project by Microsoft. And when I say open source, literally every single piece of code is available under the MIT license. That means you can literally make changes in the software legally and even redistribute or sell this software if you want to. But this is the most popular code editor that exists currently in date. And they have made it completely open source. So if you are a kind of a developer who is really interested in digging deep on how they built something like this over the past 9 years, you can go and do that. Similarly, I would like to bring your attention to education sector, digital education sector, which is being extremely popular, looking at the current scenario. MIT, Harvard, and Stanford together collaborated to build a platform called as Open edX. Now, if you I'm just going to open up Open edX and just go to the website of Open edX. You can literally find courses from MIT, Harvard, Berkeley, any of the major big universities of the United States and some other around the globe. And you can search for any course over here, which you want to learn by just typing in computer science, for example. Okay, if I type in computer science in here, I can see that all kinds of courses come up from Harvard University or Stanford University. I can click and deep dive into it. I can see that this is the course, or what is the course all about. I can see what is the content, how many hours I'm going to be putting in. And it's being taught by one of my favorite professors, David J. Malin. Right? So this just goes to say that you can get this platform that you see in front of me, in front of your screens, for free. And you can host your own content, your own open source product, which you can host your own open source courses, which people can simply come up and use and watch and participate in. And this is, again, a piece of software which is available to you for you to install on your own premise. Now, there are countless more examples like TensorFlow, which is open source. And if you go ahead and see what you can do with that, Here is an example of somebody, like people keep on talking about, that they want to learn how to do deep neural network exercises on a TensorFlow platform, for example. Now, this particular person has literally done the mathematics for you. And if you see, they have written down the formulas for each, they have written down every single expression on how to do this. And what this model does is segregates the, the vocals from your background noise. So literally, not background noise, the instruments rather. So if you are playing any music, let's say you're playing music by Pink Floyd, and you want to segregate the vocals from the actual background instruments, somebody has open sourced that project for you, so you can build something on top of it. And that's the beauty of the open source. People without any conditions or string attached want to build something that is useful for the rest of the world. Now, I would like to come back to the presentation and show you what exactly open source projects are all about. All the icons that you see below, and as I mentioned earlier, this call is probably happening thanks to the open source projects. So Apache, Nginx, these are like common servers which everybody have, including us at Quickwork. We use these kind of services. Ubuntu is an operating system which is available free of cost to everybody and anybody who wants to install a lightweight server on the cloud. Same goes with Elasticsearch, Redis, Kong, which is one of the most powerful API management tools in this world, Grafana, you name it. All of these things which you see in front of me are open source and thousands more. This is just giving you two categories of ERP and web server, but there are categories which span into the thousands to build these kind of architecture and infrastructure available as an open source entity. So this is my opinion that perhaps people can literally clone repositories, learn from others, collaborate in other people's project to gain insights and probably even recognition across the globe by collaborating in an important project which helps all others. This is the power of open source. Now, I would like to jump to a topic which is become like one of the most common words out there, APIs. Now, I have the most simplest definition I claim to know about API. One system talking to some other system is an API. If you want to communicate to a system which Google is hosting, then you use Google's API. If you want to build a software on Microsoft Windows or the Mac operating system, then you build an API on top of Mac operating system. But it's basically what we are saying is an API is just an interface which communicates with some other system. It might be any system, the system is agnostic, but it's some kind of a system which is out there. Now the definition is right in front of you. This is like my self-made definition. Literally APIs are now everywhere. Like previously they used to say that there is an app for this and there is an app for that. Now pretty much there is an API for everything. There is an API for finding the nearby location to you. There is an API to perhaps send a message over WhatsApp. There is an API for ordering food. There's an API for everything. The main purpose of having an API overall is that it enables people to do more with whatever they existingly have. To give you an example, Uber today would not exist if it were not for Google Maps. If Uber did not have Google Maps to locate where this particular cab is right now and when you are located, it would not be able to calculate the distance. It could not give you an estimate in time. It could not do absolutely anything which makes Uber Uber. And that just goes to say that APIs are so critical to the role. If tomorrow Google were to stop their Maps project, which is highly unlikely, Uber would disappear from the map completely because their entire project would go away. There are alternatives of Google Maps, sure, but for providing you with the most accurate location of all stores, all nearby premises, all hotels or places which you tend to visit, a Xerox place, for example, those are only available on Google Maps because they are very well crowdsourced and clean. So without it, it would be very difficult for most of these businesses to survive. So that's the power of an API. And instead of, again, showing you some presentation, I would like to show you a real world API. Now here in front of me, I'm using one of the most popular API platforms out there, which is Postman. And Postman allows you to pretty much test and use APIs which you want to use. Now, if I wanted to explain what an API looks like, it's pretty much a URL, a method, and a body. That's all there is to it. A URL is pretty much like https://google.com. That's pretty much a URL. A method is an HTTP verb. So if you want to get content, you say get. If you want to insert content, you say post. And similarly, there are verbs like this in HTTP to keep things very simple. I'm going to keep it to just get and post. Now here I have got a API which allows me to shorten a URL into something smaller. And this API is provided by Bitly. So if I were to take anything like this Open edX project URL, I can copy this URL, pass it to this API, send this, and I get a shortened URL, like a link over here, directly for me to pretty much copy and paste and hit enter. It will redirect me to the same page as before, but it gave me a shortened URL. And this just goes to show that there is a service and an API which will do that for you. Similarly, there's another API by Google, right? So an API, this one, for example, I live in this particular lat long over here, and I can find the nearby locations to me by typing in the type, which is bank, and I'm looking for HDFC or DBS, for example. I can search for banks nearby me by using Google Maps API. And you can see that the result clearly shows that there is a Google Map location or pin called as DBS Bank India, which is located somewhere in Andheri, East Mumbai, since I live in Mumbai. This is the nearest location to my presence. And there are APIs for everything. Literally, if you want to find music API, there is an API for finding music by Shazam. You can literally get the API and implement it in your piece of software to solve a business problem. And that's what I'm trying to say, that there is perhaps an API for everything. Simply just Google whatever you want to find out and type in front of an API word, and you'll actually find an API which is available, which does that specific task for you. And Postman is a tool which will allow you to test those APIs on the fly without any constraints. And this is just one of the things which you can do. So now let me come to the interesting part of the section, right? Like we mentioned that we are pretty much going to run a small workshop, kind of an exercise, where we're going to connect a bunch of open source applications together and solve a business problem. Now, here is where things get interesting, okay? So I'm here, this is Quickwork. This is the platform which is used to build automated workflows. Now, this is something which you can access completely free of cost on a free pricing plan. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect WhatsApp with MySQL. MySQL is an open source application. And I'm going to generate a PDF, which I'm going to send across to the user on WhatsApp. I'm then going to shorten the URL of it. And I'm also going to search for nearby places to me using Google Maps. So the two APIs which I showed you right now, I'm going to put it into a real world context and build a automated journey for you. So this is how the Quickwork platform looks like. And I am going to build something called as a journey. A journey pretty much means that you're going to build your own automated workflow. Literally, you can connect any API to any other API using this platform. So as you can see, I've got my WhatsApp over here set up already for this demonstration. And I am pretty much going to ask a few questions on WhatsApp using a bot service. And I'm going to send this to MySQL. All right, so I'm just going to do that. And you can choose WhatsApp or any other messaging platform. As we mentioned earlier, that we are pretty much conversation compliant. You can use WhatsApp, you can use Telegram, you can use Line, you can use Facebook Messenger, you can use anything that you want. But for today's demonstration, I'm going to stick to WhatsApp. And what I'm going to do on WhatsApp, I'm going to ask a question to the user. I'm literally just going and choosing a bunch of options. I'm going to ask the user, what is your name? And I'm going to say that I want the question to be in the format of text. And if somebody doesn't type in a text, what is that you want to say? I'm going to say, hey, please enter a valid name in order to proceed. All right, this is what I'm going to say. Now it's asking me to send it to a phone number. And if you see on the right-hand side, there is something called as a trigger output. Basically, whoever has sent me the message, I can access those people's credentials. So I can pretty much say that sender ID, this is phone number. I'm just going to drag and drop the phone number right over here. So let us just try this much so far. And I'm going to start this. I'm going to go to my WhatsApp. And I have got my Quickwork WhatsApp number loaded over here. Now, every time I send a hi or any other message that you want, it will say, what is your name? And I will say Krish Advani, which is the name of mine. And that's it. That's the workflow, right? That's the first step that we just implemented. So we literally connected WhatsApp right over here, which is through an API using the Quickwork platform without having to code. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to clone this step 2 more times, and I'm going to ask a few more questions. I'm going to ask, what is your age, which is going to be a number. And I'm going to change it and say, you know what, instead of saying, please enter a valid name, I'm going to say, please enter your age to proceed. And I'm going to hit save. Similarly, I am going to type in over here, instead of what is your name, I'm going to ask, what is your gender? All right, so these are the things that I'm going to ask this user. And I'm going to choose the type as, I'm just going to keep it text. And I'm going to keep the retry help text as saying that please enter a gender. All right, as simple as that. Now let me save this and run this journey right over here. Now, if I type in a hi, now in this particular case, it's going to ask me a series of questions, which is going to be, what is your name? I'm going to type in, my name is Krish Advani. I'm going to type in my age, which I'm going to put, let's say 30. And more importantly, I'm going to enter my gender and I'm going to say male. So literally we connected WhatsApp to build this bot right over here, asking 3 questions without any coding, just by using APIs in the background. And that's what Quickwork enabled you to do. Now let's go one step further, right? Let's go and add it to a database. Now I have here for you a MySQL database running on the AWS cloud. MySQL is an open source application, all right? And MySQL allows you to, of course, store and retrieve data just like anyone would do. So now I can just pretty much choose in the drop down right over here, MySQL, insert a row. I can choose to connect to any MySQL account that I like, which I have connected over here, my third MySQL account. I can choose a table, which is called as users, and I can literally start storing the data which I accumulated from the users by dragging and dropping. So I can literally go and choose the answer from the step number 1, which was the name, if you recall. The second question that I asked was the age, so I can drag and drop the answer of the age. There, oops, there you go. And finally, I'm going to enter the gender, which is the third and the last question right over here. I literally, what I have done, I've asked 3 questions and I'm saying that I'm going to insert it in an open source application like MySQL. And I'm going to hit save and I'm going to hit start. And now, and one more thing that I would like to do is I would like to acknowledge that I've received your data and inserted it. So I'm just going to send one more WhatsApp message. I'm going to send a message saying that thanks for giving us your information. We have stored it in our database. Just for the sake of it, I'm entering this message and I'm going to send it to the phone number who sent me this message. Now let's try it once again, this journey, all right? Again, it's going to ask me the same 3 questions, but now we are going to be able to store it in the database. So I'm going to try and enter a different name over here. I'm going to say John Doe, I'm going to enter the age of 45 of John Doe, and I'm going to say that he's a male. Now I can literally see that the message has come across as thanks for giving us the information we have stored in our database. And if I go back to my database, which is this open source application, MySQL, I can see, and this is a little hard to see, and I'm sorry that you will not be able to see it very clearly, but it says to John Doe, age 45 and male, right in here in this database, which I just connected with. So let me just recap for 1 second. What I am saying over here is that I took an open source application which had APIs, and in another non-open source application which again had APIs, connected them together to solve a business problem just like yourself, which is in this case collecting information. And I am connecting to just two simple applications, which is WhatsApp and MySQL. But now if I go and choose to do something else, I can connect to any major and critical application which you tend to use on a daily basis. You can connect it to Clearbit, you can connect it to DocuSign. Now these might not be the most popular applications, but like Dropbox is there, which people tend to use a lot. Gmail, or any of the Google products like Google Analytics, Calendar, Classroom, Drive, Docs, etc. They're all pre-integrated within the Quickwork platform for you to connect in any way or shape you like. Now I would like to show you some more examples of how can you connect another open source application like we showed you with the URL shortener. What I would like to do right now is perhaps focus on generating a PDF from the information collected using an open source service. So if I wanted to generate a PDF, I'm going to use something called as an HTML to PDF generator, all right? And I'm literally going to convert a HTML into a PDF, which I am going to send it across to the user on WhatsApp. As simple as that. So now I know many of you might not know how to write HTML, so I'm going to keep it very simple. Now, let me just keep it as simple as this. H1 is a heading tag in HTML, which gives it a very enormous, like a font and with a black colored tone. That's what H1 means. And you can Google up what an H1 tag means. But what I want to show is the name of the user. I want to show it in H1. So I'm just going to, again, the answer number 1, from the drop down on the right hand side, I'm going to drag it and drop it over here. And I'm going to say the H1 tag is here. Let me use the H2 tag, which is a smaller than H1 tag, as you might imagine. And I'm going to print in the age of the user. And there you go, drag and drop. And that's the age. I'm going to close the H2 tag. And finally, I'm going to take the H3 tag and I'm going to show the gender of the user, which is what we collected, which is from the answer number 3. Now I'm going to close the H3 tag. And by the way, I need to close this. This is a syntactical error right over there. Okay, so that's what I did. I have now converted an HTML to a PDF. I'm going to choose an A4 size page, since we are most familiar with that. And I'm going to keep a portrait because that's what I want. I can even give it some padding like you would do on a PDF, right? So if you want to close in the gaps from the top right and the bottom right corner or any of the margins that you want, I'm going to give it a 5 margin across all the sides. So literally without coding right now, I'm generating an HTML to PDF in an A4 size paper in portrait mode with the name, gender, and age in this kind of tag. Now I'm going to send this message on WhatsApp again to the user with this beautiful PDF generated. All right, so I'm going to send it to WhatsApp, send this message, or rather than send a message, send media. I'm going to send it to the phone number who has messaged me again, the same thing like I've been doing so far, the sender ID. The URL this time, I'm going to take it from the HTML to PDF converter is going to give me a URL. And I'm going to type in a message saying that, hey, here is your PDF. Literally, I've generated a PDF right now, and I'm going to say a media type is file because I'm sending a PDF. You can send anything that you like. Now I'm going to start this. And I'm going to go back to my WhatsApp. And I'm going to again say hi. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did right now. But now I should be able to get a PDF along with this. So let me just now say Tina Fey. Okay. Tina, Faye, just to keep different naming conventions so that we can see it in the database that we have new and new records. All right, Tina Fey. Oops, let me just check. Okay, I have answered that question. I have not received an answer yet. This happens sometimes. Let me just re-enter it just for the sake of it. Okay, I'm sorry. Tina Fey, your age, 60, for example. And now I should be able to get the gender. I'm going to put in, oh, sorry, Tina Fey is a female. And now I should, hopefully, thanks for getting your information. There you go. I now get a PDF, which I generated. Now this looks very ugly, I understand, because we hardly used any HTML in it. But if I zoom in right now, you'll be able to see that there is Tina Fey with the H1 tag, the age of 60, and the gender female added into a PDF with a margin of 5 pixels from top right and bottom right and all the sections on all the dimensions from it. So literally we used, again, to recap, 2 different applications which are open source, one which is not open source, connected together, stitched it together to build a workflow which solves a business problem just like this one. Now I'm going to hit the stop button right over here. And now we're going to be focusing on adding a few more steps, and then we can conclude and go to some other journey. Now you can use another open source software like I showed you before with the Bitly right over here. Where did it go? Here it is, Bitly. This allows you to shorten a URL into a smaller URL, correct? But what it is, this is a paid service, correct? So this will ask you to, sort of give you 1,000 URLs for free, and you can shorten it just like I showed you in the very beginning. But there is another application called as Yours URL. Now, Yours URL is pretty much an alternative of Bitly in this case particularly. And this allows you to do the same thing as Bitly does, but again, free of cost and in your domain. So pretty much you can create a short URL right over here. I already have an account created with Bitly. And I'm going to take the URL of the PDF and I'm going to shorten it. You can give it a keyword. I'm just going to type in quirk.in because that's the domain of ours, which allows you to shorten the URL. And I'm going to type in over here the title, which would be create a small PDF URL. All right. Now I'm going to send this back to the user on WhatsApp, and this would be the last thing that we do over here. Send message on WhatsApp, and I'm going to send a message saying that your shortened URL is and there is your short URL right over here. And I'm going to send it to the phone number just like I've been doing so far with the sender ID. And that's pretty much it. And I'm going to start this journey and we're going to have a look. On the WhatsApp workflow over here. Okay. Okay, it has stored it, generated a PDF, and as you can see, it even gave me the shortened URL right over here, which if I click, it's going to take me to the PDF, but it's a smaller and shorter URL. So this is what I wanted to show you overall, right? So this is just goes to show that you can really build these automated workflows really quickly using Quickwork. And of course, if you want to code it directly, you can code it directly using the APIs, which I just showed you earlier, using these open source projects. And the things don't end over there. If you're consuming a platform like WhatsApp, you can capture users' location and send it to Google Places perhaps, right? Google Places, like I showed you before, allows you to calculate a distance between your location and to the nearest location that you want to search. It could be a bank, it could be an ATM, it could be a Xerox place, it could be absolutely anything that you want to search for. And these are all pre-integrated in Quickwork. Furthermore, you can literally configure your own business logic. So for example, like you remember, we were asking for the age, right? I can pretty much say if, like I can drag and drop the if condition above, and I can say, you know what, if the age of the user is greater than 30 years old, then do something differently than you would normally do. You can build these kind of intelligent automated workflows using a platform like this. Now I would like to bring an attention to another workflow. This would be the last thing that I will show you in this, and then we can, sort of take some question and answers, which I can see there are several on the chat. But things don't really stop at messaging with us. So if you remember the second or the third slide that I showed you, Quickwork's focus really is on messaging. It's on integration and on APIs. So far I've shown you APIs and messaging. But let me show you also an integration capability which you can do as a developer or as an open source user. Let's say you want to configure a very intelligent workflow with your GitHub software, right? You can choose anything. I'm going to show you as a GitHub as an entity because since we are discussing about open source over here. Now I have a repository created over here in GitHub called as Hacktoberfest. Okay, it has nothing in it. And this is a repository which you can see over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a workflow pretty much, which is going to take the GitHub issue and send it to Slack. And you can send it to Slack, RocketChat, whatever you like. But I've configured my trigger over here for GitHub. And I'm going to say, you know what, send me this message on Slack. And I want to send it to a channel. Now I've got several channels, but I've created something called as Hacktoberfest for this video. And I'm going to say someone created an issue in the Hacktoberfest GitHub repo. And not only that, I'm going to paste the body content of the repository in here. So I'm just going to drag and drop the body of the message, which will be contained within the GitHub repository. So I'm going to say, is this going to be a bot? Yes, this is going to be a bot. The bot's name is going to be Hacktoberfest bot. All right. And I'm going to start this journey. Now I'm going to go to my GitHub and I'm literally going to create an issue. I'm going to create an issue which basically says, let's say that there is an issue with the code on line number 20. And just for sake of time, I'm going to copy and paste this and submit this issue, right? Now, this is something that will not happen instantaneously. If you just notice, this is kind of a polling service now. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for GitHub to inform us saying that there is a new message coming across via GitHub. And this will send me a message on my Slack. So I'm just going to load up my Slack over here. And I'm going to open the Hacktoberfest channel. And I'm going to bring it over here. And you'll see that this issue at 11:39 a.m. IST, which is the time right now, we just created an issue which says someone created an issue with the Hacktoberfest GitHub repository, right? This just goes to say that it just created an integration which would sync with Slack and GitHub together to solve this business problem of informing you by connecting two different applications together. So I would like to sort of come to a closure with this, and I would like to just discuss all the things that you can do more with Quickwork before we do that. So as you probably saw, there's also a history section. A history section allows you to visualize what transpired at what specific time, whether it worked out or it did not. So if I can see that 11:39 a.m., which is what was right now, somebody with a repository of Hacktoberfest created an issue, and there is all of this information which has come across to me, which includes the body, the title, who has created the issue, the name of the person, etc. And I can send this information to Slack and what went into Slack and what came out of Slack, the input and output as well. Similarly, you can also view your connections. So let's say you are the sort of guy who has several GitHub accounts, you have multiple, multiple GitHub repository or Slack. You can pretty much connect as many accounts as you like and switch between them. So if you want to establish connection with them, you can do that. There's also something called as version control. Can you disable drawing? Can you disable that? Yeah. I am just going to clear the annotation from here. Yeah, there you go. But what I was trying to say here is that you can perhaps see also your versions which you are showing up over here. You can see what changes did you do from the beginning of time till now. You can go back to a particular version as well. And you can also manage some basic settings. And you can also clone your workflows and build more and more journeys in your folders like I have done right now with my specific operation right over here. So I think I have been a little too fast in completing the exercise, but I think I've conveyed my point. And what I wanted to mention here is that open source and APIs are really, in my opinion, the way to the future. These are the things which everyone tends to use, but they don't really realize that they're using it. And you can pretty much just Google up anything that you want to do. That probably is an open source project for that. And if there is not an open source project for it, there is an API for it. And that is what I wanted to convey in this session, and how you can use Quickwork completely free of cost to sort of build these kind of journeys to solve these problems with open source and APIs. So thanks a lot for staying in tune. I'm now going to take a 2-minute pause, and I'm going to tell the moderator to tell me which questions to take forward from this session. All right, so I see a question by Shyam, who is a user of the platform. How to give validation for numerical inputs? For example, age must be less than 100. Okay, so now this is something interesting. So let me just come back to my first journey. Now, these are somewhere where things can get a little complicated, but let me just show you the validation, for example. Here, as I showed you the text and the number, you can also use regular expression. Now, regular expression is a little bit complicated for to generate, but you can Google up. So if I wanted to say regex to get number under 100, okay? So I can pretty much Google it up, and on Stack Overflow, believe it or not, I have an answer to get a number below 100. And I can even test this regex using the regex tester right over here. I'm going to disable my video for a while. So I can paste my regular expression over here. Basically, what I'm saying is that the age should be anywhere between 0 to 100. So if I type in 0, it will match. If I say 101, it will not match. If I say 100, it will match it. If I say 99, it will match because it's under 100. So I can literally just copy this expression, go back to the Quickwork platform and paste it over here. And now this will accept an age which is between 0 and 100. And you can optimize the regular expression to have an age between X and Y, whatever is that you want. All right. I see that there is no other relevant question. Is there any other question that you would like to ask? People can just post it in the chat group, and I will be more than happy to answer it right now. All right. So I would like to leave you with the last note that you can literally visit quickwork.co, and without even registering, you can just have a look at all the applications that we already have pre-integrated. We add roughly 15 to 20 new applications per day. And honestly, I cannot imagine more applications than this to be present over here. And you can drill down into what we do with each application. Let's say if you're interested in Gmail, if you want to send email, you can literally see what exactly can you do with Gmail. You can get emails, you can send email, you can delete an email, you can get an attachment, and so much more. You can also visit our journey store, which is like pre-built journeys that we have right over here, which you can pretty much clone in your account. So let's say if I'm interested in syncing Freshdesk with Jira with Gmail, I can pretty much view this journey if I want to. And in just a second, when the journey loads up, I can click on login, which I already am, but I'm just going to go to the journey store and I'm going to choose any journey. And I'm going to say, try this journey. And this journey is now imported in my account. And you can sort of, build these journeys and post it on our store as well on your behalf, where these are really good, comprehensively built journeys on top. Now, you can also look at some really, really cool journeys like this one that we just built. And there's a video on YouTube, which converts an entire Shopify store into WhatsApp. So you can run an entire Shopify store on WhatsApp, and this journey is available for you to just clone. And you can literally run this on the fly. And I would like to actually show this to you since we have a little bit of time available. I'm going to just stop my old journey and I'm going to just go to a journey called Shopify. And I'm going to start this right over here. All right. And I really want to show this to you because it's very interesting on what connecting things together can do. So I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to send a hi. Okay, welcome to the Shopify store. You can add and remove or search for products. So literally now, I'm going to say search for Levi's, which is what I sell in my Shopify store. Of course, I don't sell it per se, but I've created a dummy Shopify store, which has all of these products in there. So now that I said search for Levi's, it went into my Shopify store, extracted 3 of the most relevant products from Shopify right in here, and it's now depicting me on WhatsApp. Now I can pretty much say, if I want to add this to the cart, I can say, add the jeans number 1 to the cart. Let's say I just want to add the 1 product into the cart. So I'll say add 1, and I'll wait for the reply. If something is wrong with the journey, I can just pretty much go over here and refresh. Okay, I think I did not say the exact natural language syntax. I'm just going to say add 1 and 2. It also depends on how well you train it, by the way. So for example, add 1 did not work, but I believe add 1 and 2 will work. There you go. So it says, okay, sure, I'm adding it to your cart. And I'm going to say I want the jeans, which is weighs 32 and 68. I want to buy 1 quantity of that. Now it should be able to say that I am going to add this particular jeans on the cart. But since I had chosen 2 products to work with, now it's asking me for the second product. And I'm going to say, okay, I want the large size of that. And I also want quantity 1 in that. So once it asks me that question, yeah, there you go. I want the quantity 1. And now I should be able to see, hey, I've added that. And it should show me the cart. Now I already had 1 jeans in the cart and I've added 2 more. And I can pretty much say, okay, now I'm done. I want to check out. I'm done with this workflow or buying my accessories from the Shopify store. And I'm going to say check out. And now it should be able to generate a 194 rupee bill with the link to the Shopify store for me to make a payment, which should open up right over here. So there you go. All the jeans that I had ordered is now placed into this and I've made a payment for it and it's completely done. This just goes to show that an integration like the one that I just showed you right now, this journey right over here, which is hardly 41 steps, can convert an entire Shopify store into a WhatsApp medium. And you can pretty much buy and sell to all your customers on WhatsApp or any other messaging channel without having to worry at all. So I think this is what I wanted to leave you with. And I hope you enjoyed the session, or at least you gained some additional knowledge on open source APIs or integrations as such, or where the world is heading towards when it comes to integrations. So I'm going to go on mute. I'm going to stay on the call for 2 or 3 more minutes for if there's any other questions. But otherwise, thanks a lot for your time. Also, we are sending a feedback form on the chat link over there. If you wish to give us a feedback, that would be greatly appreciated. And we would be hosting more such events, and we'll be posting it on Eventbrite and many other places just like this. So if you're interested in such sessions, please do join in and we'll reach out to you in that if that's the case. Thanks a lot. Just to answer a question by one of the users on the chat, they're mentioning how can these products be accessed from. You can access these products from your respective service. Now, if you're selling on Flipkart and you have products on Flipkart which you want to fetch, you can do that as well. Or if you're selling it on Amazon or Shopify, you can fetch the products from any required source, because as I've posted a link on the chat, we are pretty much integrated with all those applications which you want to fetch this information from. So yes, you can fetch it from any medium of your choice and get that information out there. Yes. So if you want to filter through Flipkart, you can do that to answer your question. You can also, we are also integrated with external and international providers like Alibaba, Mercari for Japan, and all others. So if you're interested in also those to have an aggregated medium to sell, you can do that over there as well. So yes. Okay, thank you. All right, so that's answered. I'll wait for a few more minutes for a few more questions. To answer your question, yes, you'll be able to access those irrespectively, even if you're not a seller. Yeah, if the product is publicly listed, then you should be able to access it without any difficulty. And you can create a system like that, like the one that I just showed you. All right, thanks a lot.